Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Intentwise Connect. So happy to have you all here. We're happy to have our guest as well, Chris Middings from Lean Edge Marketing, with us today. Chris is an Amazon expert, and he's going to walk us through several examples of how to build a competitor-proof advertising strategy for your Amazon business. Like I said, very happy to have Chris here with us. Before we get into the presentation, quick note on logistics today. This webinar is being recorded, and we will send out the recording early next week to everybody who's registered. So don't worry if you have to log off a little bit early, or if you can't make some of the presentation. We will be sending out a recording. With that being said, please feel free to utilize the Q&A feature of Zoom to ask questions throughout the presentation. We will be answering all of the questions at the end of the slides. And there's a chat box in the presentation as well if you have any questions for me. All right, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chris Middings to walk us through building a competitor-proof advertising strategy. Chris, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Ryan. So Lean Edge, we started 5 years ago. We were all in e-commerce. A lot of us were in direct mail, catalogs. We're penny pinching marketers. It's very expensive to do catalogs. We do the full range of creative services, account management, and advertising. And we've got the verifications and prime partners. I've been in marketing for 35 years, 20 years in pay-per-click, since it started. And it's the last 10 years primarily on Amazon. And I've done work on both sides for agencies and sellers. What I want to walk you through is the assumptions of this presentation. So I'm going to lay out a strategy, multiple strategies, and all of these strategies are going to come back to the assumptions. If something doesn't make sense with the strategies, just go back to the assumptions. And hopefully that gives you a framework to think about the strategy. And we'll look at the types of ads. There is part of Amazon's, it's a zero-sum game, which I'll talk about, and part that isn't. And then I'll talk briefly about how Intentwise helps. It's just 20 slides. We should be done in a half hour or so. So here are my assumptions. Initially, I was going to call this rules, but the rules change all the time. And so I thought the assumptions was a better word for it. One is that ads do not sell. The product page sells. You can't buy your way to the top. And I've had clients try and do that, and they just spend money. And, if you don't have decent product pages with great reviews, there's no way to kind of, rocket fuel your way in Amazon. It's a slow build. You're in it for the long haul. I was going to conclude this bullet by saying the ads don't have an add to cart button on them, to just prove the point. But when I was putting the presentation together, I searched for tortillas, which you can do. And sure enough, now the add to cart buttons are on some of the ads. But in general, ads aren't going to sell it. If they bought it before, maybe, but it's only, ads are a small part of it, right? We're just trying to connect a product to an audience. Now, whether that audience is somebody who searched for a keyword, or whether that audience is somebody on one of your competitor pages, or if it's somebody who's previously browsed or bought in a particular category. And the reason I have this rule is because the strategy I'm going to lay out for you, you might be like, I can't turn off my best-selling product in this campaign. But if the best-selling product isn't working for that audience or that keyword, then just do it. I mean, I struggle with this all the time. But you have to kind of come back to this and say, look, it's just matching a product to an audience. So that's all it's doing. The best ads are seen for a half a second, and then they're off to the product page. And all the ad did was kind of convert that person from, someone who saw the ad to somebody who got to your product page. Just back to the top, one more point on that. You can't buy your way to the top, because if people don't convert, if you do too much advertising, you can actually hurt your product pages because your conversion rate's going to go down. Amazon just wants to show the best converting product. And if you just dump a bunch of non-motivated people onto your product page, it's going to actually harm you, and then your organic rank is going to slip. So again, just slowly build on Amazon rather than trying to do it all at once. The third bullet of all these things I'm going to give you, target all products always. It won't make sense in every case, but in general, that's what you want to do. You don't really know which products are going to resonate with which audiences. And then you spend $5 and if it didn't work, turn it off, and then keep the ones that are winning going. The fourth bullet is probably obvious, but this is very different than Google Ads. I've been doing that for over 20 years, and the attribution problems that came about due to Apple privacy and people using multiple uh, devices. This is the future of advertising, having the ads on the same platform as the cart. And you're starting to see the social media companies understand this, because if you're sending traffic to your website and there's no attribution, how do you know how well your ads did? You don't. You can guess, but it's not like it was 20 years ago where there was no breakage of that attribution. So sponsored products, that's the most ubiquitous, right? There's the most real estate for sponsored products, and 70% of advertisers only run sponsored products. So yes, it's a lot of real estate, but it's the most competitive space you could be advertising in. And it's all on an auction model. So if there's 100 competitors after your key term, it's going to drive up the cost per click. So they're wonderful. I love sponsored products. You get great results from them, but they're not everything about Amazon. They're mostly triggered by search. I mean, there are on product pages too, but search in general is a limited audience. There's only so many people searching for particular keywords each day. Sponsored brands, this is more of the headlines. Sponsored brand video is in there. It's a bit more about branding than, not a lot of people click on those headline ads. And then sponsored display, which is really the most interesting, and we'll get into that quite a bit. It's mainly behaviorally targeted. Amazon has the best purchase and browse data on the internet, right? They know exactly what you've looked at, and you can target people based on time, how much time has passed since they last looked at your product, and it's a much larger audience. So Amazon is a zero-sum game. This is really sponsored products and some sponsored brands, but the idea of a zero-sum game is there's only one winner, and it's winner take all. So one company is going to win the sale only by another company not winning the sale. We want to defend our product pages, and so I just searched for Nike and clicked on the first shoe I saw, and maybe they're 3P and that's why, but they're not defending their product pages. Just half a dozen other brands on this page, and that's not good, right? I mean, your store page is really the only place on Amazon that has no ads, and you can't prevent your competitors from advertising on your pages, but you should be filling up all of the ad slots, as many as you possibly can. You want them choosing between your products, not between your brand and another brand. When we look at the different ad types, I'll go back here, that one at the top, that's sponsored display, sponsored display, sponsored display. These are all sponsored products. These are sponsored brands. This is a display as well. When you look at these three slots and you say, well, we have a campaign running, it's sponsored display on our own products. Great. Copy it over 2 more times, the exact same campaign. That way you'll fill up all those 3 of those slots. So you want to do that with all 3 different types. And here with block competition, sponsored display, conversions, great. Page visits, probably not quite as good, but you can try it. Impressions is really important. So the chance that somebody else is buying display ads on a CPM basis just on your ASINs is very low. I had one client with block competition, sponsored display, CPM impressions. That was every month after month. That was their highest amount of revenue. So it's an interesting way to do it. And again, try it out. So you don't have to do this. You could just defend your own product pages, but you should have a game plan to attack your competition. I've worked for clients where the week before Christmas, somebody marked all their products as adult content, right? some competitor just said, oh, well, we'll just take them out of the game entirely, and it's going to take you 2 weeks to fix that. So you want to have a game plan in place in case someone comes after you, or you may just be really aggressive and you want to dominate the space. But either way, this is how you would do this. So you would run sponsored brand ads on all their ASINs, and then also target their brand by category. And that little graphic on the right, you can drill down into product targeting by category, by brand, and that'll probably behave differently than just targeting their ASINs, because again, it's an auction. And you also want to do sponsored product ads, target all their pages to try and fill up all those slots, target their brand by category, again, on that image on the right. And with sponsored display, again, do their ASINs, but also optimize by conversions, page visits, and impressions. Just try them out, see if they work, and then again, target them by category. And this is just an example. I've taken out the competitor name. This particular client, their goal was 50% ACoS, but this just shows you how those things I just explained behave so differently. So, the top of the sponsored display. So this is where you plug in the ASINs, right? And boy, that ACoS is crazy. But if you target the exact same thing just by category, well, the ACoS drops. And then again, display category by CPM, you get a different result. And this is all the same time period. So you can see you're going to be able to pick up a bunch of sales targeting different ways, and you put them all together, and it's a great portfolio against a particular competitor. The sponsored brand, that's the one that shows at the bottom. Typically, there's there's 3 ads down there. Those don't tend to do as well, but sometimes they do extremely well. So again, just experiment. So you go after their sponsored products, the second one from the bottom, that's the ASINs, and then one below that is going after them by category. And again, different behavior, but incremental sales. And on a portfolio basis, it meets what the client was expecting. You also want to flood their search results. If again, assuming you're going to adopt an attack position, go after their brand terms, do sponsor brand video and dump all their ASINs in there, and then your video will only show up when their product is the #1 organic search result. That confounds people. I've seen it. They don't know how to do that. Amazon is pay to play, so it just keeps moving up. And this last quarter's results, you start to see a pattern here of them almost adopting sort of a buy.com. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but even just as a browser of Amazon, you'll see that there's more ad slots, there's more real estate devoted to ads. Everything above the fold basically is an ad now, similar to how Yahoo and Google and Facebook, they kind of lock you in as a seller, they lock in the buyers, and then they just flood the whole thing with advertising. But that's what we're doing. But buy.com, that was, I'm going to date myself, but that was a while ago. They were not designed to make money. They were designed to generate a profit by selling advertising. And if you look at Amazon's, where their sources of revenue are, this red line is advertising. And that may be, their end goal. So now let's talk about Amazon as a non-zero sum game. So that, protecting your product pages, attacking other product pages, that you should be able to competitor proof your strategy. But I think sponsored display has a lot more to offer. Now, I used to teach internet marketing at a college more than 10 years ago, and I brought up this NBC, CBS, and ABC, again, dating myself. And they just rolled their eyes and wondered, why the heck do I have to know that? And the reason you have to know that is if you're a marketer, your first question when you wake up in the morning should be, where's the market? And for many decades, I mean, this is how all the big CPG companies in America got huge, is they advertised on these 3 stations. They reached 71% of the audience, and we're able to get them to choose their products when they went to the grocery store. Now, Amazon's offering you, this number varies, but 74% of U.S. consumers, it's definitely up there, right? I mean, this is probably the biggest market. Walmart too, but with Amazon, I think it's like 70% Prime membership, where Walmart's like 20% their equivalent of Prime. It's just different, right? If you're an Amazon shopper, you tend to buy everything there. 70% of them aren't going to click past the first page of search results, and they're going to use Amazon to compare products found on your website. So you really can't escape Amazon, right? I remember explaining like 25, whenever Twitter started, I'd say to the CMO, I'd say, well, this is like a 1-800 number that anybody can answer. And they'd kind of roll their eyes. They didn't understand that. And eventually, hey, they got it. Amazon's kind of similar, right? This is a product store, and if you're not representing your brand there, someone else will, and they won't do it well. Especially if you're in, say, a food category or something like that, or anything that can not do well inside of a hot Amazon warehouse. And they're gonna have a terrible response to your brand, and then you're gonna they're gonna be looking at your website, and then they're gonna go to Amazon. If there's bad reviews, if you're not represented well there, then you're gonna lose. So start thinking about Amazon that way, sort of as this umbrella of all these shoppers. Even if they're not going to buy on Amazon, they're using it to kind of do the social proof of your products. And even if they go back to your website to buy, they're using that for research purposes. So you can use it for awareness, consideration, and then purchase. Purchase really those sponsored products and a lot of sponsored brand ads. But at the same time, you can, the purpose of advertising is really to say, our company sells in this product category. And the more times you can say that to a customer, the more they'll understand it. I don't watch TV because I don't like TV advertising, but the amount of advertising for insurance, it's like, hey, we sell insurance. And they just keep repeating this message over and over. And it's like, okay, I got it. It's sort of like that, except typically it's more focused, right? So the person's actively searching for your products or is actively browsing in your product category. So it's definitely more targeted. So when we talk about display, there's CPM, right? Cost per thousand, rather than CPC. And this is older data, but it doesn't really matter. It hasn't changed all that much. But when we look, right here, search sites, this is kind of what gave me a career, right? Is that it's criminally undervalued, and it's the most specific people. Their intent is to buy something, and you show them an ad at the exact moment they're deciding that that's what they want to do. So it is just remarkable form of advertising, especially compared to like magazines, newspapers, direct mail, all of that stuff. I mean, the planning you have to put into, you've got to get your ad ready 3 months before it goes. If a client says something to me in the morning, by the evening, I have results from it because I've put it up and it's up instantly. If it doesn't work, we turn it off instantly. We don't have this waiting period. We don't have, all this time trying to come up with the right creative. It's just remarkable opportunity there. So doing behavioral targeting. So that $5 CPM, you can see that I just brought up men's athletic shoes or boys, girls, women's. Those CPMs are really low when you looked at that chart on the previous slide, and they still are. Even though that's older data, you'd think these numbers would be huge. They're not. So you can target categories with all three types of ads. You could target adjacent categories. Like I have a client that sells FODMAP, which is a particular type of diet. So I'll put ads on FODMAP book pages, or cookie cutters. Well, if they're buying a rolling pin, they might be making cookies, or popcorn kernels, go on the popcorn poppers, those sorts of things, and try and branch out. Now, the chance that one of your competitors is doing the same thing is pretty small. unless they've really thought through it. If you want to know, which categories to target, look at things that are frequently bought together, right, on your product pages, and you might get some ideas from that. There's also in market, actively buying, lifestyle, interest, life events, sponsored display video. That one's a little trickier, much more about branding. But here's the thing: you're going out, you're buying on a CPM basis, and this you can see the results here. So this client got 100 million impressions, 100 million times that their brand was associated with a product category. They spent 83 grand and made $1 million, and their ACoS was really low. So when I say, use Amazon to build your brand, it doesn't have to be sort of branding, right? Branding is always, I've worked for a lot of CPG companies, and when people say, oh, it's a branding exercise, I mean, that means you're not going to make any money at it. And but on Amazon you can, because it's so specific, right? We know these people, we know their purchase behavior. And for any agencies out there who say, oh, well, that ACoS is artificially low. I've heard this argument many times, thought through it, for like 6 months, because it bothers me so much. Because a lot of agencies will come in and they'll automatically turn off these CPM campaigns because they think the ACoS is artificially low. But the thing to do is look at the tacos, right? The total ad cost of sales, what you put into advertising and what the total sales were. That's where the proof of advertising really is. ACoS is a measure, but all of this branding, all those 100 million impressions would have impacted people later. They saw it and then they were more inclined to buy because of those impressions. There's also remarketing. So these are the ones where you can do 7, 14, 30, 60, 90, all the different day, since they last purchased or since they last saw you. And if you sell a consumable, you're going to hit on a sweet spot. They buy every 30 days, they buy every 60 days, whatever it is. And I would run through every possible opportunity. Because that's the thing about Amazon too, is there's all these ways to target, but they are pretty limited. On Google, you could have 100 million variations of a campaign. With Amazon, it's pretty limited. I mean, pretty much everything that I put up on the screen, that's it. So definitely do remarketing, especially with consumables. And then this is the thing. So you've built out all those campaigns, and I have one client with 1,500 campaigns. How do you manage that, right? You can't really manage it manually. And it's difficult if they're in, a bunch of countries, or if you're an agency and you're trying to manage 50 accounts at once. Intentwise rolls all that up. So, every morning you open it up and there's all your accounts, the ACoS, the spend, revenue, the tacos. And so you're able, on one screen, get the pulse of what happened the last 7 days, 14, 30 days, whatever it is. And that's hugely helpful. The other thing is, you're setting a target ACoS, right? So you're not spending all your time trying to figure out the right bits for things. Let the machine do that, right? The machine has more data than you can keep in your head. You have all these campaigns, all these targeting strategies. That's what Intentwise is built for. The other thing it does is it surfaces data that it's really hard to navigate to. So, you have to click into a campaign, click into an ad group, click into targeting, click into your products, click into search terms, all these, it's just very cumbersome. And then with Intentwise, you'll be able to surface that data and search through it, keywords through all the campaigns, that sort of stuff. It's really, Amazon's interface is not that great. And I mean, I've lived through 20 years of Google building theirs out. Theirs just became more difficult over time, and maybe Amazon's trying to keep theirs simple or something, but you can't really do very much in their interface. The other thing it does, it allows you to make time-consuming changes. So a couple of weeks ago, I had to put in a negative keyword across 60 campaigns, and that would have taken me hours to do it in in Amazon, but in Intentwise, it took like 3 minutes. You just pick up, the campaigns you want, dump this negative keyword in all of them, and you're done. And you can get, again, back to strategy. That's the main thing it does, is it allows you to focus on strategy rather than all of these little things that just have to be done every day. You can set up automated rules. I get an email every morning of all these rules that ran. This, again, is an extremely time-consuming thing to do, but by yourself. So you think, okay, well, and the ad costs $5, it could be $25, depending on your whatever your product price is. But if again, and this comes back also to target all products all ways, because if you do that, then these rules will clean up, right? They'll clean up all the keywords, they'll clean up the products that are being targeted, they'll clean up the targeting mechanism. So this way you don't have to do all that. It's very, very time consuming. If the ad cost is above $5, you haven't had any revenue in 120 days, turn off that auto targeting group, turn off that sponsored brand keywords, turn off that sponsored product keyword. Those products are still being advertised 100 different ways. It's just that they didn't work for this particular audience, and that's fine, right? We want to only surface the right product for the right audience. That's the goal of the advertising, to connect those two. The other one, the second one from the bottom is search terms. So, if you're running a sponsored brand ad or sponsored product ad, there's search terms. You didn't buy these terms, right? Amazon's matching them to the key terms, the keywords that you did buy, and they're hidden, in that interface, and they could be eating up your budget, and you have no idea. And it's really hard to navigate to them, especially if you have a bunch of campaigns. So just set up a rule. Hey, look, don't show my ads for that search term. It's killing me. Same with product audience. If the 7-day look back window on people who purchased your product doesn't work, well, put your money into the 14-day window, the 30-day window, that sort of thing. So this, again, just saves a lot of time. This is sometimes twice a day I'm in doing these recommendations. So it surfaces anything from an auto campaign that turned into a sale. So you just grab those keywords and you drop them into your manual campaigns, and then you don't have to rely on them possibly showing in an auto campaign. The same with manual, those search terms that led to a sale that, again, you didn't buy that search term. Amazon mastered off a keyword. So then all of a sudden you can immediately be buying, it works, right? I mean, revenue. Same with sponsored brand. And then it also surfaces, say there's this keyword in a sponsored product ad, but you're not using that keyword in your sponsored brand ads, or vice versa. That's good to know. I mean, that'd be really hard to figure out on your own. Here it is, simple interface, go and add those in. Product targeting suggestions. So if you got a sale off of somebody else's page, then it surfaces all of those, and again, like twice a day. Remarkable, right? And so you're immediately, if something's trending, if some product's trending, you're getting sales off of it, just immediately start buying ads directly on there. And then there's share of voice. So this is where you put in your top keywords that lead to revenue, and this will surface all of the other people showing up on the search results page with you. And not all of them are going to make sense, but some of them, it's amazing. So you can find them before they turn into a sale, so that you can advertise on their pages. And then depending on how many ASINs you have, it'll surface the ones that aren't in particular types of advertising. It's really fun. And then the keywords. So when you do add keywords, you can add broad phrase and exact. You can dump them into, it's like, say you have a keyword that works, and you're like, oh, that's a great keyword, I didn't even think of that one. Let's put that into sponsored products. Let's put that into sponsored brand. Let's put that into sponsored brand video. And you can do that all with one, one interface here. And then here, like, usually I'm pretty cautious with keywords. I like to start at a low bid and then slowly move up, because I don't want to get socked if it doesn't work. Here you can just use average CPC. So whatever the average CPC is for that particular campaign, then you kind of start out in the middle. You're not like Amazon suggested bids are always way too high. I mean, look, 673, right? I mean, come on, I'm not going to pay that. So this allows you to do all of that in one workflow, multiple campaigns, multiple keywords, and it's just easy. And it's really easy to train other people on this. And I think that's important too, because I've used other ones where, trying to train someone to learn the interface is hard. This is a really simple one to learn. You can teach somebody in 10 minutes. So that is that's everything. Is there questions?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. I think that was a packed presentation full of great advice and recommendations. We do have a few questions here. Go ahead and read some of them out loud, Chris. And then if you want to, first one, Chris, you talked a little bit about targeting adjacent products. So for example, if you sell cookie cutters, targeting rolling pins, what is your process for determining which adjacent products to advertise against?
So I really like the bought with on product pages. So, they typically your product and then two other products that are bought together. And then, then it's pretty obvious, right? If they bought some Mexican seasonings and some tortillas and some salsa, hey, those are good categories. And also just kind of brainstorming and doing searches, see who else is advertising on particular terms. It's not, it's more of a creative process. I mean, there is some data that you can use, but yeah, it's not a perfect system, but it's fun to try. Hey, maybe those people will like this.
Awesome. Makes sense. We have another question here from Andrea. It says, sponsored display ads on a view CPM basis are known to cannibalize organic traffic. Do you recommend we just forget about sponsored display and use DSP instead?
Yeah, so I'm not really talking about DSP. I think that's a complete other animal. I'm talking about, this is, our clients are not all huge, so I'm really just talking about using the sponsored products, sponsored brands, and sponsored display. Now, a lot of that stuff came over a few years ago from DSP, right? All of those targeting methods that I talked about with sponsored display weren't there 3 years ago. And that as far as it cannibalizing organic, that's where you watch your tacos. And you really should be looking at the percentage of sales from advertising versus the percentage of sales from organic. And the caveat there is, if 70% of an Amazon page is advertising and only 30% is organic, well, then that's where we're headed. If you are lucky and you have a consumable and your people have subscribe and save and only 20% of your ads, 20% of your sales are from ads, you're in a much better position. Otherwise, that number is going to go up over time. We've seen it go up so much already.
Awesome. Thank you. We have another question here from Lauren. Do you think running sponsored display and DSP simultaneously makes sense, or is it duplicative? I can answer this one first, Chris, and then if you have anything to add, feel free to chime in.
Go ahead.
Lauren, I think there are a few instances where running sponsored display and DSP at the same time does make sense, or picking one versus the other. In my experience, obviously sponsored display is much easier to get up and running. It's self-serve, so you can utilize it directly within the ad console without needing to get a seat for DSP. There's no minimum spend for sponsored display as well. And you can still benefit from some of the advanced targeting options that Chris reviewed. However, if you are looking for the maximum control with those ads, you want to build maybe custom audiences that the self-serve doesn't support, or you have higher budgets and you're looking to do maybe things off of Amazon and send traffic to your website, DSP is the clear winner in that case. So I think depending on your needs, choosing one or the other. And if you're running both, I would just make sure that you're testing across platforms, right? If you're finding that sponsored display with a particular audience does better than DSP with that same audience, then that would be a case to keep it running. But generally speaking, if you have a DSP seat and if you have spend going through DSP, I prefer and recommend to set up all of your campaigns, or at least most of them, in DSP, because you have better reporting and maximum control as opposed to the self-serve with sponsored display.
Yeah, and I guess I'd just add to that DSP, with a minimum spend, I don't really like buying advertising with a minimum spend, right? So we'll hit our main categories and we'll hit our main audience, but if we then are reaching into adjacent categories in order to increase spend, it just doesn't seem to me that's because that initial spend is great, but then the more you spread it out wider and wider, you're going to get worse results from all of that. But you have this minimum, so you have to hit it, and then
Yeah,
not and it's not ideal. And I know it makes sense for a lot of brands, and I know that they hit the minimum easily, but for smaller companies, they may just be spend without any benefit.
totally agree. It really depends on the situation. I think we have one more question here, Chris, and then we can probably call it. If anybody has other questions, go ahead and utilize the Q&A box to submit them. So last question here is, how do you determine when a domination strategy is oversaturated in terms of trying to capture all of the traffic?
Yeah, yeah. So, this comes back to strategy of domination versus profitability. So if you're profitability, you're just trying to hit an ACoS goal. You're happy with gradual growth, and you're happy with your market share. A domination strategy is more you come in and you say, okay, we're going to own this one, and so you buy up everything. And I think the oversaturation is when the point where 90% of your sales are coming from ads, and that's not a hypothetical. Unfortunately, we have some go-getters out there, because at that point, you're just it's completely pay to play, and it really depends on the category. If it's a non-competitive category, you may be able to dominate, but yeah, I think that balance between paid and organic sales, if it gets too high, you're probably oversaturated.
All right. Well, I think that's everybody's questions for today. So unless there's any others that pop up, we're going to go ahead and round out this webinar. So thank you again, Chris, for taking the time to put together this presentation and come share some of your learnings over the years with Amazon and other marketing channels. Really appreciate it. And
Thanks for having me.
of course. And to everybody else, thank you for joining. We will send out the recording early next week. If you have any questions for me or Chris, our contact info is on the screen here, or you can reach out to us on our websites. Thank you.